All right, so we're going to start with an icebreaker, and that will be done by myself. I'll also set the framing for the session, and the Mentimeter is ideally to help everyone to better understand why this session is important and how we can learn more and set the pace for whatever discussions we'll have today. And then we're going to have welcome remarks, Nasubo from Qhala and Esther Kinuthia from CSUT. And then Esther Wambugu will take us through definitions, which are very important to help us better understand what artificial intelligence is about and how it has evolved over the years. And then Joshua will then take us through the six-phase journey. And because we felt that it was important to reflect back on the content that we will deliver, as well as help the audience, you as the audience, to create a roadmap that is specific to you and specific to your organization, we will have a section on reflection and roadmap that will be led by Valentine and Rakibatu. And then Barbara will also speak a bit about the AI literacy work that we're doing and how you as a C-suite can participate in this movement. Yeah, so again, as we move along, please feel free to write on chat. You can ask questions as we go. We're going to try and answer them. You can introduce yourself. You can tell us how you feel artificial intelligence can support your institution and any other interesting information that you'd like to share. So these are the session objectives. We wanted to anchor this session on the six-phase people-centered AI adoption journey. So this is a journey that will help you as a C-suite executive to actually navigate and orchestrate full adoption of artificial intelligence in your organization and create for you a tried and true map that can help you plus your team actually carry out this full adoption. And then we're going to look at case for AI literacy and the fact that artificial intelligence is no longer a technical issue. It is now a boardroom and C-suite issue. We're going to assess your organization's AI readiness. We hope that you had an opportunity to review the AI readiness checklist that we shared. And this can actually help you as we move along with the slides today to see why you as an organization. We're also going to look at a few AI use cases and how you can align them with strategy, and then go on to give you a few ideas and hints on how you can design, test, and scale AI solutions ethically, and the different personnel in your teams who could actually plug into that process. And of course, as I mentioned, very important, we will support you in identifying your roadmap and how you can move forward with the 2026 strategic planning for artificial intelligence. All right, so I'd like us to quickly do a Mentimeter icebreaker. So feel free to use the link on your screen, right? So you should see a link on your chat that will take you to our Mentimeter. So this icebreaker is to help you also reflect and see what areas that you can actually plug into your institution and so on. I can see we have about 51 people who have joined. For power, we can see power coming through as part of, oh, it's mind-blowing. It's audacious. It's all about automation. It's disruptive. So I can see power seems to be the big term here. There's efficiency. Okay, yeah, so efficiency and power seem to be the big terms coming through. Okay. It's a lifeline, yeah? So I can see someone has mentioned a lifeline. Feel free to type in on chat why you think it's revolutionary, why you think it means power, it's the future, it's transformational. So these are all terms that are very impactful, and they are, they seem to be really important for organizational development. So yeah, so I think our top three terms are efficiency, power, and revolutionary. Let's move on to the next one. So let's look at fear now. What's your greatest fear about AI? We'd really like to know what is at individual and at organizational level, what are some fears that you have? Okay, so manipulation of users, that's a big one, especially when it comes to data protection and how our data is used. Displacement, yes, I can see again data privacy breaches, job loss, yeah, misinformation. Okay, so the two big ones that seem to be coming out in terms of, your fear about AI is misinformation and job loss. And I think this is very prevalent, especially when we have run several literacy programs across different domains. These are the three areas that we're seeing are, bringing out the most fear. So job loss, misinformation, misuse, there's laziness. I can see laziness is a big one. I'm interested to see anyone who mentioned laziness. Why do you think that's the case? You can just type in on chat as I give guys time to put in. So I can also see on chat we have uncertainty, we have it's changing too rapidly. So there's that dynamic change that's happening. Are we really able to keep up? All right, let's move to the next one. So what describes your organization's current relationship with AI? So I can see lots of zero and none. So we're hoping this session is going to support those of you who have zero or none, no relationship with AI. Some organizations are embracing, I can see that. There's fear, it's blossoming. So of course I can see both balance of negative and positive relationships with AI. And we are hoping that we can strengthen those ones who already have positive relationship with artificial intelligence. All right. So yeah, so happy that we have a mix. We have those ones who are excited about artificial intelligence. We have those ones who are a bit fearful, and it's okay. We are hoping that by the end of this session, we have increased the ones who are intent on having a better relationship at organizational level with AI. So I can see a few comments. Mechanization has rendered our muscles useless. So I think that's tied to laziness that was mentioned in the previous question. So let's look at readiness. So we actually sent out a small task for you to do prior to this webinar. And now we want to quickly test and see. Of course, Joshua, my colleague, will speak more about the AI readiness, but just to test and see very quickly, what is your organization's readiness when it comes to AI? So this scale is going to move left and right as that tug of war is happening. So let's see where we land in the next minute or so. All right, so we are at 3.3, 3.5. We've dropped to 3.2. Yeah, let's have more people, giving their views so that we see where the scale ends up. Okay, we are reduced to 3.1. All right. Yeah, so I think it's pretty neutral at 3.1, 3.2. All right, let me give it a minute or so and then we see where we are. But it looks like most of us neutral when it comes to your organizational readiness. So again, this is a good opportunity as we present to you the 6-phase journey where you can see what you need to put in or what you need to invest in so that you can promote or push that scale more towards the right, which means that your AI readiness is actually improving and growing. So I just want to give it a few more seconds before we move on. It's not moved, so I think we can comfortably say we are, okay, we are at 3.2, 3.3. All right, so we have just seen a bit of neutrality when it comes to AI readiness. So let us look at what then are some of the key things that you feel your organization needs to do to help you move more, to actually help you move more to the right on the scale. So we have these 6 areas. Feel free to choose more than one, because remember, AI is cross-cutting. It doesn't only touch engineering, doesn't only touch, talent. It's very cross-cutting. So just want to see what are some of the gaps. Okay, so talent seems to be a big one. We also have data quality is another big one. Strategy and governance. I was actually thinking ethical and responsible frameworks would top the list, but this is interesting to see. So we have talent, we have infrastructure as well is coming up, but talent seems to be the big one in this case. Also on chat, I can see number 4, which is infrastructure. Again, feel free to choose more than one because this is a cross-cutting issue. All right, so we can see talent is the winner. Okay, so the next question as we wind up this Mentimeter is ethics is a big one, yeah, and ethical issues to do with data protection, data privacy are critical when it comes to adoption of AI. So what are some of the areas that you feel are, having the greatest ethical risk when it comes to the organization's adoption? So also for this question, feel free to select more than one. So I can see on chat we have data privacy, we have misuse of AI, transparency, okay, job displacement. So this, of course, ties to the first question that we asked. Okay, bias and fairness. Someone has checked on chat. Security. Okay. So I think the biggest one is misuse, sorry, actually data privacy, and then misuse of AI. So during the Q&A section, we're going to give you guys an opportunity to, to speak about some of the, risks that you've mentioned and why you feel that these risks are, significant for your organization. All right, so that's it for the interactive Mentimeter session. We're going to definitely have another section where we're going to interact with you more. And feel free to type in on chat and let us know your thoughts. But we do have a lot of information coming in on chat, and I'm happy about that. All right, over to you, Joshua.
Thank
and
you.
just as you are coming in, I can see Jimmy Gitonga's question. We've been brought into this AI hype, and we are wringing our hands. We are frozen, wondering when to jump onto the fast-moving train. So that's an excellent question, and we're going to try and answer that question for you today by giving you a framework that you can use across different organizations that can actually support you to have a clear and concrete roadmap moving from awareness of the AI tools that you can use all the way until full AI adoption. So just hold on to that question, and we will definitely answer it as we move along. All right, over to you, Joshua.
Thank you. Before I speak, I would invite Nasubo and Esther to give their welcoming remarks. So Nasubo, over to you, and then Esther.
Good morning, everyone. I hope the Mentimeter has helped us to see where we are going with this discussion. My name is Nasubo Ongoma. I am the Deputy CEO of Qhala, and I'm happy that you are able to join us. She would have loved to join us, but she had a personal emergency that she was unable to come. but I just want to send her regards to you and to say thank you very much for joining us. I'll begin with a simple observation. For many years, digital transformation has been treated like a technology project. And so it has lived in IT departments. It has been led mostly by CTOs, focused on systems, tools, and infrastructure. But what we are seeing now with AI, it's very different. So AI is not just another technology layer. It is changing how organizations think, decide, and compete. And because of that, it's no longer a CTO conversation. It is now a C-suite responsibility. So it leaves this question: should we use AI? And jumping into the question that Jimmy Gitonga asked and saying that many are wringing their hands frozen, wondering, do we move into this fast-moving train? What do we need to do? So right now, as we are in this session, I want you to think about this. How will AI reshape your strategy, your workforce, your risk, and your decision-making? Because we've had conversations, AI masterclasses with different people, and we see a common pattern. Many have adopted digital tools, and then they are generating large volumes of data, but then these systems operate pretty much in silos. We see workflows remaining fragmented. Sometimes insights come a bit too late, and leaders are kind of paralyzed in making critical decisions because they do not have complete visibility over the data. But now with AI, we see that it has the potential to change this. But for it to change and help us make critical decisions, we see that we have to approach it as an organizational transformation. It has to go beyond the tech. When you look at Qhala, our work focuses on helping institutions to redesign how intelligence flows across different systems, teams, and leadership. For us, AI adoption is a leadership challenge. And because of that, it is also a technology challenge. It requires clarity, where we are able to understand where are we going to get value, how are we going to govern the risks that come from that, and how are we going to ensure that people are able to trust and use the outputs, and how are organizations going to move from pilots to actually real operational impact. And so throughout this session, just look at the following questions. You can look at how will AI change how we plan and make decisions. As we go through the session, think about that. Also think about how do we create competitive and operational advantage? What risks are being introduced, and how do we ensure that we make it part of the organization? So these are very much leadership questions, and they require leadership ownership. And so today's session is designed to help you think about AI as an organizational capability, one that touches strategy, operations, governance, and people. Thank you very much. We look forward to this conversation, starting now and also in the future. You're very welcome.
All right. Thank you so much, Nasubo. I'll hand it over to Esther to give your keynote.
All right. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much, first of all, for joining our session. We don't take it for granted, and I'm excited for what we have planned for you today. So basically, I just want to introduce C-Level, just kind of give context as to why this community exists. So first of all, I'm Kenyan, and I've been living in Ireland for 10 years. But before moving to Ireland, of course, I was in Nairobi. And in fairness, I was a very ambitious student, and I was kind of making a name for myself. And I used to feel like, I'm connected and I'm networking with people. I felt like I had a really good thing going on. So when I got the opportunity to relocate to Ireland in 2015, my first worry was that, oh my goodness, I am going to be forgotten in Kenya. I was 21, so I don't blame myself. I don't know much at that point. But those were my fears. And I continued having those fears for the next 4 years until 2019, when I got the opportunity to go do a short-term assignment at Google Kenya. And I realized that, in those 6 months that I was in Nairobi, I actually didn't interact with anyone new. I just connected still with my colleagues and the friends that I didn't even make new friends. And that's when I started to realize that connecting or networking with people, whichever word you want to use there, it's really an intentional endeavor. You just don't walk out and you meet people. You actually have to put effort into it. And so that's what inspired me to organize a dinner. At that point, I wasn't really thinking about C-level. I was just thinking about meeting people and networking with them. So I organized a dinner on January 11th or 12th of 2020, and it was really good. Everybody loved it. People were enthusiastic. I actually did not have any pushback getting people. I got 40 people. I didn't know how many people I'd get. I got 40 C-level people attending the dinner. And, people had great conversations, and they had, deep conversations as well, which is impressive considering some of these people are meeting for the first time. And I asked them, hi, would you like this to turn into a WhatsApp group and for us to continue doing this going forward? And everybody was like, yeah. And actually that's what sparked the beginning of C-level. And I've been running the community now for the last 6 years. Truly, time flies. And we've had many events. Qhala themselves have been a very good partner for C-level, and we've done events with them in the past. And I'm always appreciative of their collaboration. And in 2026, our goal this year is peer-led knowledge sharing. And I'm so grateful once again to Qhala for kicking us off with a very good AI training for all of us this year. So yeah, that's just all about C-level. If you're interested in connecting with me, I've just shared my LinkedIn profile in the chat section. I can tell you more about C-level. I can add you to the group. And if you want to join us for more trainings, you're more than welcome. And if you want to organize one for us, you're even more than welcome. Yeah, that's all from me today. Thank you so much. I'll take it back to the Qhala team.
All right, thank you so much, Esther. So just to continue framing today's discussion, we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so artificial intelligence is now not a technical issue anymore. It is becoming a boardroom issue. And as Nasubo has discussed and as Esther has mentioned, this decision power is actually shifting from the server rooms and the engineer meetings to more of the CEO and boardroom level discussions. Next slide, please. And a typical case study of that is Microsoft, which is currently deciding whether they want to expand and develop data centers. And this expansion is going to have a significant impact on water consumption in whichever region they decide to set it up. So we're seeing a situation where this technical project is going to have boardroom strategic challenges. And these challenges are encompassing environmental and social impacts. They're encompassing how a corporate institution, implements its governance and what trends we are seeing around corporate governance. And it's also going to impact the investments that we take on AI infrastructure as well. Next slide, please. So just to help us frame this further, I'll hand it over to Esther Obado, who will take us through the definitions. So I'm seeing a lot of comments on chat about, please define AI for us. We'd like to better understand how these different tools interconnect. So I'm going to hand it over to Esther to take us through that journey. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Esther Wambugu Obado. I am based out of Johannesburg. I work for Microsoft as a virtual CTO for majorly customers who are starting up on their digital journey. And today I just want us to go through one of a few things that I believe we have seen in the Mentimeter response around the fears that we are all facing majorly as organizations, but also as individuals. We have heard that AI is not a tech strategy, but a boardroom conversation. And today, where I stand, I see a very big intersection of opportunity, but yet uncertainty. When I look at those polls, there was a lot of curiosity, fear, and all these is because the AI is no longer a tool, but a force that is shaping how we think, how we work, how we compete, and how we lead, literally around everything within our organization. And with that comes with what we call the AI leadership dilemma. As leaders, we are being forced to balance competing priorities, keeping the lights on, but also trying to advance. And in all these, the question is, there's so many questions that are coming in. The dilemma of speed versus safety. We have seen about people talking about data privacy, but then I need to keep innovating. What I call the FOMO, the fear of missing out. My competitors might be ahead of me and I'm left behind. But then at the end of it all, how do I stay relevant, continue innovating with speed, but then again, manage the risks that come with things like data breach, bias, having AI responsibly? The second dilemma we are seeing is around business autonomy and central control. Business units wanting the freedom to innovate at their own pace, deploy AI quickly, tailor it for their own needs. But then the other question is, how do we centrally control this? Because if we all decide to adopt AI, I use a different tool, the other marketing uses a different tool, how do we manage all that duplication of tools, data centralization, licenses, all that coming into play? But I think the biggest of them all is innovation versus compliance. Government and industry regulators are realizing AI regulation has to be implemented. But for me, it is not just AI regulation, it's also the impact that has on our data regulation. We now have Africa Union AI framework, but how do we stay compliant? I think that's a question. How do I stay compliant? Majorly for those maybe who are in regulated industry like healthcare, finance, banking, insurance, how do we stay compliant, but as well as scale? But I think the one that all of us feel the pressure on is efficiency versus work transformation. Employees feel their jobs are going to be redundant. And as managers, we are wondering, how do I become efficient? How do I reduce my bottom line as well as automate, but make sure the workforce still feel that they are part of this? So in all this dilemma, the question then has shifted. AI is no longer tech strategy. The CIO, yes, might be the custodians, but the conversation is at the boardroom level. And if you look at it, then I would like us to take a step back and understand the journey of AI. AI means artificial intelligence. We can go to the next slide, please. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, what comes into mind? I think for me, when someone says artificial intelligence, I think of the opposite of human intelligence, being machine intelligence, compute intelligence. For some of us who did computer science a while ago, we learned artificial intelligence in school. But I would like us to take a step back and understand where all this came about. In 1950, there was a gentleman called Alan Turing, who we call him the grandfather of modern computing. This guy came up with what we call the Turing test. The test was all about the question, answering the question around, can machine think? It was all theory at that point, but then it opened a very different aspect of intelligence beside the human intelligence. Through this question, later in 1950 at the Dartmouth conference, AI was launched as a field of learning with a mission of making machine intelligent. In about 1960, we had our first chatbot, Eliza. Eliza had its own, it was very simple, but it had a way of answering some of the most predefined queries. And it started showing us there's a potential in all this. But then later in the 80s, the progress to AI hit a very big gridlock, what they call the AI winter. There was reduced funding, very few people believed in it, and people literally stopped focusing a lot on AI. But then something happened in the 90s. We had what we call the AI bloom. And this was fueled by a deep increased computer power, and as well as the birth of internet. At this point in time, Deep Blue, for those who play games online, Deep Blue defeated the world chess champion. Deep Blue was a chess playing supercomputer which was created by IBM. This brought a big breaking point in AI. In 2000, the year came of big data era, big data processing, all this because of the power of the internet. And with big data processing, then came about data-driven AI, because there's not much AI without data. And through this, we were able to create and improve algorithms. It is at this point, Netflix started giving us suggestion on the next best series. It's at this point, Google Maps started being able to help you navigate through, because it has better algorithm, it's able to process the right data, and it's able to help you make decisions. This paved the way for what we call the deep learning. I like to look at deep learning, and literally it is a subset of AI. I like to relate deep learning with how our brain works. Our brain is made of complex neural networks, billions of them. They help us think, function, recognize patterns. And through this, what deep learning it is in AI is trying to mimic this by creating neural networks from data, understanding the patterns and relationships around it, and through it being able to power and make decisions. In this era of the 2000s, it's when we started hearing about the self-driving cars. When Elon started, coming up with Tesla. All this was powered by the aspect of deep learning. But then what changed? What has changed? As we can see, this has been there. It's been there. What has changed? In 2020, ChatGPT came about. And it was an interesting point, because we can all be able, query any information. It can generate content for me. I can be able to summarize document. I can create images. And that is what we call the emergence of generative AI. It was a big turning point. And in this turning point, we are able to say that content, the AI industry, was able to be more like a creative soul. AI became a collaborator. It's not just about learning. It's able to generate information for us. And it's through this evolution, we have moved to a very new era, which started last year, the agentic era. The era of agents, where it's no longer about generating information, it's about being autonomous. I give you a task, it's able to plan, it's able to reason, it's able to act out of an autonomous workflow. But in all this evolution, we are seeing a very different aspect. And in this evolution of agentic AI, which I'd like to spend a bit more time on, is where think about how many agents sometimes you would interact with if you needed to book a travel, right? You need a travel agent, maybe an insurance agent, you need all that. With an autonomous agent, you can only have one agent which is able to do all these tasks. In organization, we are seeing agents being used to address customer queries, where maybe customers raised a query around failed transaction. The AI is able to investigate that case, is able to take actions across all the different systems. It's able to resolve or even escalate the case, close the loop with the customer. And in all this, being able to even recommend to the customer some of the best, if at all it's maybe upsell some of those use cases to the customer. So we are talking about an era of autonomous intelligence. Now, with that understanding of evolution, with that clarity that AI has evolved, and we believe AI has matured, and it has become more real, I'd like us to expound what are those high-level fundamentals that are driving this. And we look at it through what we call the layered ecosystem. Key to note, at the core of this is data. We have reached the maturity of where we can be able to process massive amount of data. We earlier spoke about deep learning being a case of being able to mimic how the brain works. We have billions of these in our brains, but how do we make it real? So at the foundation layer is the neural networks. And these neural networks are those networks we are able to create by processing data. Think about, how do you train a child to identify that this is a dog? You're able to tell the child, an animal with 4 legs that can bark like this, it's a dog. But then that's not it. It could be a lion as well. It has 4 legs. So how do you help that child identify different images, different traits of a dog to help the child understand better? It is the same concept on deep learning and the same concept on creating the neural networks. We train the machines to be able to identify the data, identify the relationships, help it define the different semantics and patterns in this data, which leads me to the next foundation, which is what we call pattern recognition. The ability to create relationships, correlations, trends, and similarity in that data. And this comes into the foundation of what we're calling the large language models. I'm sure we have had the question of LLM, GPT-5, all those words, those are large language models, as well as small language models. And if I was to explain this further, I would say a large language model is still a type of intelligence model that has been trained with very massive amounts of data. It's able to understand, it's able to generate and listen like a human being. And to give you an example today, some of the biggest large language models have been trained on close to about 1.7 trillion data points. 1.7 trillion data points. Someone was making fun and saying it's actually been trained by more data than some of us have as humans. So it's able to act in a more smarter way. But through the large language model, we are able to fuel the autonomous listening. And in this autonomous reasoning is where we are able to create agents that become like digital assistants. And here people are calling, if it's a developer, you have a junior developer. If it's a legal assistant, you have a legal, what do they call, the paralegal team. So all these, they're becoming like your day-to-day assistant. So with this, therefore, an agent is able to reason, it's able to observe, it's able to think, it's able to plan, but above all, act. So it's more like a small mini human. And I'd like to give an example. Think of a contract management in your organization. And you have this team that manages the contract management. But with, let's say, an autonomous AI agent, all you need to do is give that autonomous AI agent access to the folders with all the content. The agent will be able to read every contract, pick key important points like when does a contract expire, what are the implications, what are the clauses of renewal, any surcharges around it, and goes ahead and triggers a workflow to the legal team with a summary of each contract, giving it reasoning on whether to renew the contract or not. It also goes ahead and creates a sample new contracts and request for you to review, together even with an email body that you can use to send to the other party. And if at all you don't act on it, it will keep sending reminders if this is not acted upon. So if you look at that whole experience, it's able to act, it's able to understand, it's able to generate, it's able to give you a better experience. And that is what we are calling the AI. But this is not the end. At the top here, we still have the robotics, where AI is being integrated into the physical. Robotic is becoming more visible and tangible form of the AI. Think of a self-driving car, which are more like robots, but they have a lot of sensors, they have cameras, they have microphones, but within it, there's AI integration. So I've spoken a lot about the evolution, the foundation, but I would like us to just take a pause and think, how can we apply this to your organization? because I believe AI is not a destination, it is just an acceleration. And having the right understanding on the impact it can bring to your organization is paramount. Isaac, as I close, do not forget the right foundation to any AI success is three things: data, having the right infrastructure, but paramount, the right use case. Every organization is different. And that is why it is important for us to think about what is your AI readiness? How do you start the journey? And I'll hand over to Joshua to be able to expound more on around that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Esther. So let's begin. What's the six-phase journey? Why are we even discussing about the six-phase journey? So before we dig into this, I like to tell you about Dalberg. So Dalberg Data Insights did this study, and then they came up with something called the six-phase AI adoption journey. And this is framework that helps organizations adopt AI into their workflow. So the reason why we are doing this is because AI is projected to add $2.9 trillion into the African economy by 2030. But that is only if we tap into the wonders of the technology. Secondly, there's much AI hype out there. I don't know whether some of you are receiving the ads on YouTube that tells you, hey, are you over 40? Teenagers are building AI, building apps using AI, and people over 40 only know how to use ChatGPT. So there's a lot of AI hype out there. There's actually a guy who has written a book called AI Snake Oil. His name is Alvind. You should go check it out. It's looking at history, how when a new technology is brought forth, there's a lot of hype, a lot of snake oil that goes into it. If you would remember, snake oil are those guys in the 1800s, early 1900s, who used to go around US selling snake oil as a way of healing, magical healing. But then that is not true. So even right now, there's a lot of AI being sold, but it is really snake oil. So the question that we must ask ourselves is, how can we indeed maximize the technology? So that we push back on those guys telling you, are you over 40 and you're not using AI? They are selling snake oil. And the third thing is that we have freely been given and freely do we give. So we have been given by Dalberg Data Insights these very good frameworks, and we are giving them for free. So as Dr. Elizabeth had shared before, we had an AI readiness scorecard, which was looking at these 5 frameworks. What is your vision and strategy? What is your talent and skills, leadership and incentives, workflows, governance, and ethical guardrails? So in case you had not filled this, my colleague Veronica is going to share on the charts the link to the AI readiness scorecard, and you can answer those questions. They are about 30 questions. Once you answer them, a report is going to be sent back to you on your inbox, assessing what your biggest gaps are in terms of AI readiness and where you stand specifically on these 5 dimensions: where you stand on vision and strategy, where you stand on talent and skills, leadership, workflows, and governance. So what we are going to go next is how exactly we come up with an AI readiness. So we are going to be sharing a lot of resources, a lot of tools that you and your strategy team can sit down and discover where you are in your AI adoption journey. So the AI adoption journey, first of all, we are going to discover. That's the first phase, where we're going to identify AI opportunities and assess your organizational readiness. The scorecard that I had shared is going to help you in that, but we're also going to get hands-on to see how exactly you can discover where you, and then we are going to set clear objectives and define success metrics. Again, there is a framework for this. And then the third one is design, where you're going to create an AI solution architecture and framework, and there are frameworks that can help you design this. And then fourth, you're going to develop. After you have discovered where you are, defined your actual objectives and decide, you're going to build an AI model, either a small language model, as Esther had shared, or a large language model, or is it robotics, whichever use case that is within your organization. And then you are going to pilot. That's the fifth phase, where you're going to test the solution in a controlled environment and then scale it. This is now the final stage where you deploy the AI across your organization. So all this can be found in Dalberg Data Insights People Playbook. It's called the People Playbook. Can continue? Yes, so in the discover phase, what do you do? This is the first phase that grounds your AI journey in AI, real user needs, and organizational realities. So in this phase, what you'll be mostly concerned with, even as you are filling out the AI readiness scorecard, is you understanding your pain points as an organization, and then you are identifying AI opportunities out there, and then conducting current state analysis. What are the pain points? Where do you need to go, and then where are you right now, and then of course the user and the business needs. And this, we are going to be guided by a framework that we are going to share in the next slide. So we can go to the next slide. Yes, so this is the tool. So we are going to be sharing a lot of tools here. My colleague Veronica will also share all these tools as we are continuing. So the first tool that I am going to share in the discover phase, it's called the user persona canvas. So it's a template that now you actually take it out, and then with your strategy team and with whoever is involved in this AI adoption in your organization, you write it. We are going to see a place where you're actually going to write. So this template helps the team capture the human context around your users, who they are. For example, if you're Royal Media, as I have seen in the charts, who are your users? What drives them? What are the challenges they face? And how do they interact with the technology? So by grounding personas in real stories and workflows, your team can design AI solutions that are relevant, trusted, and easy to adopt. So tips that can get you started is start with actual real stories, and then focus on what drives adoption, because it's going to be a place where you write the drivers of adoption and technology, and then you keep it practical. So how does this look? The next slide is going to show you how the actual user persona canvas looks like. Let's continue to yes. So this is a user persona canvas. Remember, we're still in the first phase of discovery. So you must start with the people who are using your product. So what's their name? What's their role? What's their education level? What's their behavioral drivers? What motivates them? And then what are the technology considerations? What are the tools and the systems that they currently use? Are they digital? Are they analog? What devices do they use most often? Are they smartphones, laptop, desktop? How reliable is the internet connectivity? Reliable, intermittent? We don't want to assume that we are everybody is connected. What is their attitude towards AI? That's very key. Are they excited? Are they skeptical? Are they neutral? Are they fearful? So that's the first phase. You discover where you are in the user persona canvas. Again, this is a very hands-on process where you actually go with it with your team. Let's continue. Yes, and then workflow context, still on the user persona canvas. What does a typical day in the life look like for this person, your user? What are their main tasks and responsibilities? What are the key inputs and outputs? Namely, what data do they rely on? What do they produce? What are the delays, inefficiency, or drop off? What are their pain points and challenges? What challenges do these users face? What frustrates them the most? Where do they lose time or energy? What barriers keep them from doing their job effectively? And then success signals. Again, to repeat, the reason why we are doing all this is we don't want to get into the whole AI bubble. We want, for you to adopt AI, it must be motivated by your strategy, by what you do as an organization, not to add a .com error. You remember during the internet bubble, everybody was adding a .com error behind in their name, internet.com. But the .com error was very important. Remember, the most productive and the most profitable businesses are those that thrived in the internet era. Look at Google, look at Microsoft. So it's important for you to actually go through this, because those businesses that actually thrived in the internet era are those that looked at their users and thrived, not those who were just flowing with the bubble. Yes, so that's a user persona canvas. Let's go to the next. So this is the define stage. Define stage, also we have tools that we are going to share. So the tools is that the define phase, what it focuses on is you translate challenges, the challenges that you have just experienced, you have just identified in the previous phase, into well-defined AI use cases and assess if AI is truly the right tool. So you prioritize the most valuable opportunities and then have a short list of of high potential use cases. So let me define what a use case is. I found a very good definition of a use case. So AI use cases are specific applications of AI. Esther has just shared very different ways that AI is already manifested. So we have robotics, we have large language models, we have small language models, we have retrieval augmented applications. So an AI use case, and since most of the people here, we are 82, we are looking for a specific use case in your business. So how can AI be applied to a specific application? So for example, in automation task, in improving efficiency, in enhancing decision-making across industries. So some of the biggest use cases in Kenya, in customer service, chatbots, personalized marketing, predictive maintenance, fraud detection, content creation, which is a big one, and analyzing complex data sets for those of us in data science and research. So what do we do in the define phase? We are looking at what decision could AI augment or support, what task could AI automate, and what prediction could AI make? So the tool that we are going to share in the next slide, can connect to the next slide, Carol. We are going to define a use case. It's called a use case definition canvas. So this canvas helps your team to turn a validated problem into a clear, well-scoped AI use case. So in the first phase, the discovery phase, you have a problem. You have a validated problem that all of you agree that this is the problem and this is the users, these are their challenges. And then you define it to a clear, well-scoped AI use case. You capture what the solution does, for whom and how it works. And then you summarize the value drivers, success signals, what does success look like? What are the ethical guardrails or safeguards? For example, in research, I am in research, you are not supposed to share your personally identifiable information. That's an ethical safeguard. Ecosystem dependencies on one page. So the output aligns with your team and sets up the next steps. So tips to get you started is you anchor to the problem that you have just defined, begin the problem statement, write a one-sentence description, and then name the primary users and list their top needs in plain language. Remember, we have just looked at the users in the previous one. Then be concrete about the how. Specify data sources. Where are you going to get the data for this use case? Are you going to do basic processing steps? What is the delivery interface? Are you looking at a WhatsApp, a USSD, a dashboard? Remember, one of the ways that I shared about key applications in AI is either in a chatbot, a marketing, a personalized marketing. Is it in creation? We have industries called the data-rich industries. Data-rich industries, finance, the software engineering. Actually, Microsoft acquired GitHub. So a lot of data, a lot of code that is in GitHub is now owned by Microsoft. So they can use that data to train their Copilot. So that's a use case. So where is the data coming from? And then define success, choose measurable indicators you can test, and then record ethical safeguards. Again, you need to ensure that you are embedding safety by design in all your processes to make sure that Africa produces responsible and safe AI. Let's continue to see how this use case canvas looks like. So this is how it looks like. Here's the description. What's this solution about? This is the target user groups. Who are the primary users? This is the top user needs. What are the main challenges that these users are facing? And then how does it work? What the use case that you have identified with your team that we need an actual AI to solve this problem? What data will be used? What insight will be generated? Which interface will the insights be delivered to? And then the key value drivers is, how does this use case benefit the users? What is the objective? What is the North Star? Ultimately, how does it benefit the user? Yeah, we are grounding this on the final user, because we have learned from the internet era, those organizations that have the user as the North Star, the ones that drive, especially in this internet, especially in the intelligence era that we are in AI. So what are the success signals? What would success look like? What are the ethical safeguards? And what are the ecosystem considerations? Again, we're in Africa, we have to consider ecosystem considerations. So if I could speak more on the ecosystem, at Qhala, we have something called the horsemen. We had the 4 horsemen, but now we have expanded it to 6 horsemen. So these horsemen, we are using a biblical language to show that if we don't develop the AI ecosystem in Africa, we are bound to fail because we're still at a very nascent period. So the ecosystem comprises of data. Share that data is the foundation of AI. It comprises of the computing technology that requires all these computing resources. So by compute, you should think about data centers. Africa has about less than 1% of data centers in the world. Think about GPUs, because training your AI on a CPU, it would crash it. Think about cloud computing. So that's the second consideration that you have in the ecosystem. The third one is the markets. You should consider your users, which is one of the reasons why we are really looking at the users, because you need to develop an AI for an actual user. You have to look at investment. Where is the money going to come from? Because especially if you are developing a large language model, it's heavy on investment, heavy on money. And we're also looking at governance. What are the governance guardrails? Does Kenya have a strategy? We do have a strategy, the national AI strategy that was launched last year by the government. And we're also developing a policy by the government. Continentally, we have the Africa Continental AI Strategy. We have the African Declaration on AI, we have the Africa AI Council. So all these things are the ecosystem considerations that you should look at, because developing an AI use case in Africa looks very different from global north, where they already have a thriving ecosystem. Let's continue. Yes, the third phase is design. How are we going to design after we have discovered, after we have defined? So the purpose of this is to shape promising ideas into workable solution blueprints. So this phase covers data requirements. What are the data requirements that you have already identified in the previous phase of define? What are the user flows? What is the tech? What are the ethical guardrails? The build versus buy choices, which is a critical one. And then we have two resources that we share, which is the product requirement documents and user flow templates, which you can create a design that is practical, ethical, and ready for development. So let's look at the two. So one, we have the product requirement document, and then the second tool is the build versus buy checklist. So the product requirement document is a single source of truth for your solution design. It brings together the architecture sketch, which are the inputs, the processing, the outputs, the feedback parts, and the quality and ethical guardrails, which is the measurable criteria for usability, performance, inclusion, privacy, and safety. So you use it to align technical and program teams before development and to brief partners clearly. So this is important because you need the technical teams, the program teams to be aligned. And also this product requirement is a very good document because it's one document that has all that. Build versus buy checklist. So it's a template that helps team compares open source, proprietary, and hybrid options. So open source is your free ChatGPT. Why would you use a free ChatGPT as opposed to a ChatGPT that you pay for? There is proprietary ChatGPT that you pay about $20. Or why would you use a hybrid option, for example, for each solution component? So we are going to zero in on build versus buy checklist in the next slide. Yes, so this is build versus buy checklist. So this template guides decision making when evaluating open source versus proprietary, which is things that you buy. It helps you document trade-offs in a structured way, ensuring decisions are transparent and contextual. So the component, you write it there. What is the AI tool that you have? Does it have an open source option? Does it have a proprietary option, or is it a hybrid mix? You have already discovered your need, you have already defined the use case, and now as you are designing it, you have to ask yourself, is there a tool that exists out there that we can buy? Or is there a free tool out there that we can tap into? If this does not work, we will come to another option of where you have to build the actual tool. But before you come here, you have to ask yourself and do some basic research to look at whether there is an open source out there, there's a proprietary out there, and all the factors that are involved. For example, in the cost analysis section down there, you capture costs now and at scale. You should consider licenses, subscription, infrastructure, staff time, and hidden costs. You should look at, for the open source, what is the What is the component? What is this? How much are you going to be paying back? What are the hidden costs for proprietary? How much does it cost to guide you in making the decision? Let's continue. Yes. So if you decide that you're going to develop the technology as opposed to either buying it or using a free tool out there, then you develop the actual technology, which is the fourth phase. So a tool that you can use here is a skill matrix. So you map the expertise required across the whole journey. Remember, we have walked through the phases. You look at whether you have the resources to actually do this. You look at whether you have the internal resources or whether you will have to externally hire someone. You look at whether you should assign an owner for this. Use this to align your capacity, you reduce single point risk, and you plan resources. You look at whether you're going to upskill, whether you need partnerships to help you. And this should be in step with your product required document and build versus buy choices. So once you develop those, then you decide that you're going to build, you look at your resources. So you look at the skills. Some of the skills that you would need are product management, UX, data engineering, ML ops, your QA people, your security people, your change management. Then assign an owner by name and note any coverage risk. So, and then for each gap, you assign a yes, that we have this or we do not have this. And look at whether you're going to partner, you're going to recruit, or you're going to upskill, and link to an actual budget line so that you may see whether you can actually develop the technology. Let's continue, Carol. Thank you. So this is the skills matrix. This is how it looks like. So this template that I'm sharing helps teams capture the technical expertise needed across the AI journey, list the skills required, identify who brings them, and highlight where gaps remain. So you can use this to align your team on capacity. You clarify what are the trade-offs that are going to be required and plan strategically for resourcing. So look at this. So skills by AI journey phase. So for each phase of the AI journey.
Morning, my friend. I just landed back from Dubai.
Sorry, Esther, you are unmuted. Great. So for each phase, you look at what are the core skills required. For the first phase, which is the discover phase, if you decide that you're going to build and not buy an proprietary AI or use a free tool, look at what are the skills that are required in the discover phase, the skills that are required in the define, design, develop, pilot, and scale. Who brings it? Who is the owner, an actual person who is going to run with it? What are the gaps identified in that process? So each of the phases, you're going to write each of the phases here. Discover, define, design, develop, pilot, scale, and then write what are the skills required, who brings it, who is the owner, what is the gap, and then notes on that. Let's continue. After you have figured that out and you have a team and you have built, then you pilot. So what is piloting? We can go to the next slide. So it's you testing your solution in real world conditions. So this one, it's going to help you to validate usability, feasibility, and early outcomes. This is important for you to pilot before scaling, before hitting the market. So you have developed a product. Even if you bought a product, or even if you used a free option out there, you still need to do pilots. So you do focus pilots, some focus group discussions that you can gather feedback, and then you track meaningful indicators to help you see whether indeed the solution that you have come up with is viable, is feasible. And then it's going to help you to iterate. It's good to pause and see that we should go back to the first phase and discover again and define. So this is a very iterative process before hitting a scale. So before hitting scale, you need to have defined that this is really, really good for us. So what is scale? So you have defined the problem, you have discovered the problem, defined the problem, you have designed a solution around it through a use case, you have developed an actual problem, you have piloted it in a group setting in a very controlled environment. And then once you're sure it's going to work, you expand it. So you embed the solution into systems, into workflows, into the culture of your organization or your users or your customers, and ensure that it's supported by strong technical, financial, and operational foundations that we have talked about in the develop stage, where you're looking at the skills and the resources, the human resources that you're going to use. So this one is going to ensure sustainability and adaptability and continuous improvement. So those are the 6 phases that we are going to cover. We are not going to cover the breakout sessions today because of time, but I am going to invite my colleague Raki and Valentine to take us through the next slide. So you can go to the next slide. Yes. So Valentine, over to you to take us through the roadmap to full AI adoption.
Thank you so much, Joshua. I think we can just start with something fun to jog on our minds. A lot has been said. So now imagine your board has now asked you one question, maybe tomorrow morning, Monday morning. How confident are you now in AI adoption based on everything we've actually talked about from my team members? So would your answer be confident? Would it be cautious, or would it be unclear? So I pretty much pray and expect that we won't really have unclear answers now because of all that we've covered. And now the gap that I'm here to fill is more of a confidence and clarity gap. Now that's what this roadmap. So my name is Valentine.
Hi, Valentine. Your sound is not quite clear. Maybe you can do without the earphones.
And now you can't hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So as I was stating, my name is Valentine Irongo, and I'm a research fellow here at Qhala. And what an honor it is to have you here. So now, based on everything, something we need to remember is that AI adoption mostly fails because organizations try to scale before they are ready. So now what you're seeing from this slide is just a summary of everything we've discussed under the 6 phase adoption in institutions or even organizations. So we all started from the discovery phase, so which equips us with the understanding of what AI can and cannot do. So this covers basically awareness, now understanding, or rather finding where now to start the organization. Then we moved on to the defining phase. So here we set out the clear goals. So this means we pick out specific goals and decide how will we measure success based on this data. Right?
Hey,
now,
Valentine, sorry to
Hi.
disrupt your flow. You may need to remove your earphones so that we can hear you clearer.
I hope there's quite some noise around. I hope it won't really distract.
All right, go ahead.
Saying that the second phase was more of a defining phase. So here we set out clear goals, and this means now you pick up the specific goals and decide how to measure the success in your institution. And then we head over to the third phase. So in this phase, it's more of a designing phase, right? So we now draw a map on how AI will look and work for your users. So here we're building the blueprint, and now that covers the strategy. And then the fourth phase, it was all about developing an integration. So here we are integrating AI into the existing systems that you guys have in your organizations while making sure that it's safe, it's fair, it's legal, and even ethical. And then for the fifth phase, we are working on piloting. So here we are testing our integrations and development on a small scale. So as Joshua mentioned, we start from a small scale, then now we progress afterwards. So here we are actually making sure that whatever we've implemented or integrated is actually working, and it covers the checking, or rather it covers for success in institutions. And now finally, we scale out. So we roll out our establishments across the whole company and make it better over time. So here now we are accelerating over multiple use cases. So now at this stage, AI is now fully adopted in a manner that's trusted, governed, optimized, and delivering measurable value. Thank you so much. Over to you, Rakibatu.
Thank you very much, Valentine. So when you look at the old overview, when you look at the roadmap, can you take that to the map? You know the difference between organizations that stall as explorations and that reach full adoption. And as the previous panelists have mentioned, this is really a technology problem. It's more of a strategy and leadership choices behind it. And this is exactly where many organizations get stuck. Not because AI doesn't work, but because leadership doesn't have the strategic partner to support them across all of this journey. And at Qhala, we push beyond the tools. We help leaders to make right decisions at the right phases so that the strategy is clear, the data is ready, the risks are understood, and organizations don't hit the common failure to scale war. So whether you are still building awareness on AI, you're testing ideas, you're shaping strategy, or just trying to scale safely, Qhala is one of the strategic partners to actually help you end to end at each of the stage. And what that means in practice is simple. You have a clear priority that aligns with your business strategy, the leadership visibility into risks, ethics, and compliance, an AI system that scales responsibly without breaking trust and control. And also, the approach is already working. And I can give you an example of some of the cases that are actually working in practice globally in the US, given JP Morgan, for example. They use AI to review commercial loan agreements. Now, what used to take lawyers over 360 hours a year now takes seconds. Now, this isn't just about speed alone. It's about freeing your most valuable talents to focus on what is important, the strategy, instead of just the paperwork. Now, let's talk about risks and customer experience. In South Africa, the Standard Bank, they use an AI to see exactly where customers were getting stuck. And they didn't just face a technical issues. They reduced the digital service error by 98% and grew their customer by 7% that year. Now, that is turning AI into better data and trust into growth. And also, we are probably familiar with Safaricom in Kenya. They're currently using AI to analyze mobile usage pattern. Now, instead of using the regular traditional banking history for lending, they start using alternative data. And now this allows them to offer credit to people without bank accounts that were entirely locked out of revenue stream. Now they have unlocked new business model and a new way of growing rather than just improving on the old one. Now, if you look at these organizations and these successful cases, this organization didn't just win because they brought in a new AI tools. They won because they treat AI as a strategic leadership journey, not another IT experiment. So if you look at the role that we currently play at Qhala, supporting leaders through each of this journey, from awareness to full adoptions, you get the full clarity and confidence. So as you begin to reflect on where your organization is in your AI journey, the question now is not whether you're going to adopt AI. It should be, how can you deliberately choose to move from one phase to another, understanding that AI is not your technical project, it's more of a leadership choices. And with the right partner, it becomes your competitive advantage for your organization, not another risk. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Valentine and Rakibatu, for that awesome overview. So I'll now hand it over for the last 3 to 5 minutes to Barbara, who leads the AI literacy initiative or movement at Qhala. So over to you, Barbara.
Thank you, Dr. Elizabeth. Thank you, everyone, for your patience to this point. So we promised to end by 12:30, and we hope to honor that. So up to where we have reached, perhaps there's the question, why are we having this conversation, and why was this session curated for our African C-suites? What does AI mean for the organizations? Where are we in terms of understanding AI? What comes out strongly is that AI is a driver of our productivity, and it gives a competitive edge. So as leaders, how are we reshaping our priorities, and how can we ensure that we create value from the data that we have? Are we positioning ourselves to collect unique data, or are we just adopting AI because the disruptive technology is here? How are we governing our data and our AI for trust and resilience? What are we doing so that we can be able to have faster insights, improve our customer experiences, and just have smarter operations? So especially for the C-level leaders who are here, we carry out research at Qhala, and one of the strongest outputs was the Africa AI Talent Readiness Index. I'm not so sure how many African countries are represented in the room, but the Kenyan C-suite, Kenya came out number 4. And so that just shows just how fast this technology is permeating our spaces. So do we have that understanding for us to be able to position what we have, the resources that are available for the organizations that we lead for strategic investments? Do we know when to trust and question AI recommendations? Are we aware of some of the things that are happening in the ecosystem, the regulatory shifts, the AI partners, and what's going on? So at Qhala, yesterday, just on Monday, there was a session, and I think if it is possible, the research team, we can be able to just share some of the outcomes, but it was touching on frameworks. And it's not just Africa, even globally, there are regions, Europe, USA, the UK, that are already pushing for fairness and transparency. And then locally in Africa, is the AI working for us? Are we part of the conversations that policymakers and other institutions are championing so that we have continent-appropriate AI that works for our context? Do we understand the data protection policies? Do we understand what AI safety means? And if AI is built on data, how can we position ourselves so that we invest in data infrastructure and capacities? If we have a situation where the custodian of the data perhaps are they getting enough support for them to be able to realize the value that AI actually has? Are we embedding AI in our strategies, including the data foundations, governance? Are we having capacity building for our people? Because at the heart of it all, the people still matter. There is still space for human in the loop, and there's still the place for human judgment. It's not just about jumping on the technology and people maintaining the fear that AI is going to replace, which is going to persist the cultural issues. It's going to have that resistance still going on. And sometimes I smile because there are situations where when you engage with data protection practitioners, they actually say the true insights that data brings out is still not welcome for some of these dashboards. So that suggests that there's still the cultural issues that as leaders, we need to champion so that this adoption augments human judgment and does not replace it. We've had this session for C-level leaders, but what we are trying to do is to ensure that no one is left behind in this conversation, seeing as we now have a generation where the young people are very savvy. And so what we're trying to do as a continent is to champion what we call the Africa AI literacy movement. We are trying to respond to the demand for these skills. We are pushing for AI foundational knowledge to different communities, and we do it through a hybrid model that is in-person sessions complemented by self-paced LMS studying. And we have been at it for nearly 2 years now. So what we are trying to do is, instead of waiting for when Africa will be ready in terms of infrastructure, then we start with what we have, which is pushing for literacy for at least 15% of these communities. These are the early adopters. So this has worked very well, and it has enabled us to just establish some public-private partnerships that is positioning Africa to be able to leverage on innovation that is coming from our young people. At the end of it, our long-term goal is that we will have people who are able to experiment with AI from an early age. And even if it's not part of the curriculum, then we have our young people already experimenting and being able to identify with AI and building for Africa solutions that solve African problems, not just adopting solutions that come from other places that do not respond to our language, that do not respond to our context. And what I will leave you with before I wind up is just to invite all of us to be part of this Africa AI movement. This is something that we are able to achieve when we come together. We are able to achieve this massively and scale massively. And I'm so glad to see some of our partners in the call, and I can't wait for what the outcomes will be in 2026. So if you see that call on our Qhala pages, please join us and be a part of this story. If you have ability to open up some of your spaces, to contribute data sets that people can be able to experiment with during hackathons, if you have thought leaders, different, you're able to plug in one way or another, then we welcome all of you. So I'm glad I've shared that so that you don't just hear about what happened, but you can actually author the story for the continent. That's our logo, should you see it anywhere else. Apart from that, thank you very, very much for creating time to join our session. We are very, very honored with your presence. And our plan is that this is one of a series of other sessions. As you can see, there's so much we would wish to cover, but
thank
we have
you
to
so
respect
much.
your time.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Barbara.
you, and back
thank you
to you,
so
Dr.
much for that roundup. So we'd like to close the session just in less than a few seconds, and to say thank you so much for joining today's session and for making it as interactive as it has been, and also to Esther. Thank you for opening up your network for us to interact with them and to share with them. So if you're still on the call, I'd like to welcome you to give your vote of thanks as we close out the webinar. Thank you.
All right. Generally, I don't have much to say, but to just thank Qhala once again for doing this session for us. We don't take it for granted. This was like a Harvard masterclass, and you've genuinely just given us a gift. So thank you so much. Thank you for the attendees. Once again, we wouldn't have a session if we don't have the attendees. So thank you once again for creating the time to come join us. And I hope you have gotten a lot of value from it. If you still feel like you have more AI related questions, just feel free to reach out to the Qhala team. They are such fantastic people to work with, and they can help you with, your businesses and all that good stuff that comes with AI. So yeah, thank you everyone, and see you in the next C-level session.